Get out the insurance cards, get out the co-pays. The office is open, my friends. Brought to you by drroto.com.
It's time once again for everybody to come aboard that Green Screens Media train, recording live from somewhere. This is One and Done, your fast break of college basketball information. On tonight's show, another double dose of conference previews featuring the old Summit and that Fun Belt, Sun Belt Conference. I'm here tonight with two of the best in the business to do it as we continue our journey across the landscape of college basketball this preseason. My name is Jay Heinrich, the conductor of the aforementioned Green Screens Media train. You can follow me on Twitter at Dr. William Cannon, on X, Elon Hole, whatever you want to call it. And of course, as I mentioned, two of the best in the business. And tonight, starting with my guy, Eric the Blue, you can find him in those Twitter streets at Fantasy Nav. He's the Baron of Bread of Green Screens Media. That is Mr. Eric Romoff. What's happening?
We getting ever closer to the tip-off of the college basketball season. That means that we have, I think, tonight's show, another set of mid-major previews. Then we're getting into those high majors. We're going to weave in some more interviews between here and there. And very, very soon, the debut of our top 20 countdown of the best returning players in all of the land. Make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss any of it.
That's right. Like and subscribe. Leave us a comment. Let us know you're here. Just say, hey. Follow everybody on Twitter, including El Capitan himself. He is the captain of the Green Screens Media ship. Find him on X at MC Holland 34. That's the OG Money Mike. That is Mike Holland. What it do, baby?
What it do? Hey, excited for tonight. The Summit League is one of my favorites, and the Sun Belt has been one of the most competitive out there, and a real fun one to cover with a ton of teams. A lot of action happening tonight. We got a bunch of stuff coming up. We're almost, 50 days out or so. So, man, it's coming fast. It's coming furious, and we're here to bring you all the content that you need to get ready for the season. So, let's not bury the lead here. Let's get into it, Jay.
Let's hop into it. Before we do that, I wanted to get you to follow at One and Done CBB on X and at Get Green Screens, our guy Eric. Little prize pick action over there. He played for us on that GSM account tonight. So, I'll give it a follow and see what we pop up there for you every once in a while. But like Mike said, let's go ahead and get right to it. This is the Summit League. 9 teams in this league now after losing Western Illinois last year. The regular season champion was Oral Roberts, going 18 and in the conference. Absolutely dominated, and of course won the conference tournament as well, blowing out North Dakota State 92-58 there, but then head on over to the big dance and lose to number 2 seed Duke 74-51. 24th ranked conference according to Ken Palm's rankings, with one team in the top 100, which of course was Oral Roberts. Let's head over to our guy Eric the Blue for the headlines.
I mean, I think the headlines for this conference have to start with the absolute exodus of talent leaving the conference overall. We mentioned our guy Max Abmas, Oral Roberts, making their way to the tournament and being bounced thanks in large part to that terrible draw against the Blue Devils. Well, now Max Abmas bounces his way out of Oral Roberts. He is heading to the 50 acres to suit up for the Longhorns. And they also lose Connor Vanover, who's heading to Missouri. But that is just the start of the list. North Dakota State loses Grant Nelson to Alabama. St. Thomas loses star freshman Andrew Rode over to Virginia. Kansas City, the Roos, they lose their dynamic duo over Raquandis Mitchell, heading to Penn State, and Shamari Allen off to UCF. South Dakota State loses Tezos Kamateros over to Vanderbilt, and Denver lost their stud freshman Justin Mullins to Northwestern. So obviously, as I am barely keeping my breath going down this list, a lot of big names that are on their way out the conference. Feels like it really kind of stirs the pot in terms of how this one will be won when it's all said and done.
Exodus, movement of your people.
Man,
Oh,
an
yeah.
early song.
And it's
Love
the
it.
40 acres, of course, my guy Eric. The 40 acres over here in Austin. You know, you got the other two resident Longhorn fans in here, and
I think he did that on purpose.
was that a shot? Is there 50 acres in Waco at Baylor or something like that? Is that Mike's team at Baylor? Anyways, Mike, I know you got a headline too. What do you got?
Yeah, well, I got the 3-ball tonight, my guys. Who's going to get this thing squared away? This conference second in the country in 3-point percentage. This is the third year in the last 4 years that they've finished in the top 6 in 3-point percentages in conference play. So obviously, this is going to be a key component with a lot of talent gone. I mean, golly, like Eric listed off all these names, and a lot of these guys are playing at major college programs. So we'll be following them and talking about them in future shows as we do those previews.
A lot of guys left, have skedaddled from the old Summit League. However, there are quite a few talented players still left, which brings us to our next segment, which are the peak performers of the Summit League. Scott, guard from Denver, 6'1", 180 pounds, 15.9 points, 5 dimes, 33% from 3. I guess I can tolerate that. You got to be at 33%, no less than that if you're playing as much as Bruner's playing, which was 34.5 minutes. So, bouncing around 3 programs, but looking to put a bow on a special final year, Mike.
Yeah, career highs in points, minutes, assists last year. He's an experienced floor leader. He's great on ball screens. He really likes to create for himself and others, especially in transition. So, yeah, he's just a really high usage player. And I think Denver is going to have to soak up every opportunity from him in order for them to have a successful season. So Brune, definitely one we're going to be watching as he has a ton of experience.
No doubt about it. Another one we'll be watching here as a peak performer of the Summit League is Anderson Kopp, guard from Kansas City, 6'5", 190 pounds, 13 points, 4.3 boards, almost 3 dimes, and 44% from 3. Fired up, Mike! Fired up! 2.3 steals. Okay, only played 4 games. Whatever. You know, the talent's there. He's a bucket from deep, absolute sharpshooter who, with Allen and Mitchell transferring, he's sort of the forgotten man here, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to forget when someone comes in and has, that kind of performance in just 4 games. So obviously it looked like he was really ramping up to a breakout year. The injury is always something that's tough to see, but I don't think this was a fluke. Like, he was solid the year before in a limited role as well. 3 out of those 4 games where he really exploded were against very good teams, Indiana State, Toledo, Kansas State, right? Like he wasn't running it up on a bunch of scrubs. And now with some of the, the exits for the Roos, you mentioned Mitchell, you mentioned Allen, this kid's going to have a lot of playing time available to him. So I'm super pumped to see what he does with it when the season tips off.
One of the biggest question marks of this conference is if Kopp's going to be able to put it together across the season. Now, one thing that's not in question are the leaps and bounds that this guy has taken in each of his first 3 years, and that's Boden Skunberg, the guard from North Dakota State, 6'5", 205. Love the size on a guard like that. 15.1 points, over 5 boards, and shot 40% from range in 31.5 minutes, Mike. Really like what Skunberg brings to the table.
Yeah, I mean, look at that form in the graphic here. Like, I mean, he's definitely shot 40% when you hold it up like that. Last 3 years, man, nothing but bread. Right there.
Looks like me in the parking lot at Vegas when we were at the tournament.
Here we go. That was last year. Hey, but this cat, man, 12 minutes freshman year, 23 minutes, and then 32 minutes. And field goal percentage also rose with the increase in minutes from 35% to 40 to 45%. So he's really become an efficient scorer. He's also really taking care of the basketball, which is huge. We talk about how much turnovers mean, and especially when you come down to February and March. He showed clutch ability. He hit some big-time shots for this program, and he just has really nice size and control. He showed he's not a complete liability defensively, so, can hold his own that way. So just a real complete player. And, I'm really excited to see what he's going to do this upcoming year.
It's just a matter of if he can take another step forward. I mean, imagine that. We're talking conference player of the year potential. But now a player that was sort of in that shadow of a conference player of the year type before was Issac McBride from Oral Roberts. 12 points, almost 3 boards, 2.5 dimes, and shot 41% from 3. But of course, mentioned earlier that A. Smith is transferred to Texas, and nobody there to hold him back anymore, Eric. It's his show now.
Yeah, I mean, he's got that in common with a lot of the guys that we've touched on this list, right? There's a ton of usage that's opened up in front of him. McBride himself, he started his career at Vanderbilt, so he is a Commodore. He brings that high major experience. Great three-point shooter, right? You're certainly not gonna scoff at 41% from range, but he can also get other guys involved. Takes care of the ball pretty well. I'm projecting him to get up, near 16, 17 points a game, maybe 4 or 5 dimes, and if he does that, I think he can be in the conversation for all league players.
A couple guys back to back that could do that. And then last but not least, the one that will probably be the preseason conference player of the year, Zeke Mayo, guard from South Dakota State, 6'3", 185 pounds, averaged 18.2 points, 6.2 rebounds, 3.4 assists, shot 37% from 3, 90% from the charity stripe, and averaged a steal per game. After an absolute monster of a sophomore year, he's probably going to end up being the top dog in the conference, Mike.
Yeah, man, this guy doubled his scoring, his rebounding, and nearly his assist total, and did it in an 8-minute difference between his freshman year. So this guy can beat you in so many ways. Obviously, if Max Asmus wasn't there, probably would have challenged for Conference Player of the Year. And you're right, Jay. I mean, this guy's going to be preseason Conference Player of the Year. And sky's the limit for this guy heading into his upperclassman year. So this is a guy that I'm going to be paying very, very close attention to as we go through this season.
Our peak performers of the Summit League: Tommy Brune, Anderson Kopp, Boden Skunberg, Issac McBride, and of course, Zeke Mayo. You're watching some Summit League ball. Those are some names that are going to pop out and perform on a nightly basis and on a show league basis. How do you say that? On an every show basis. If you've been hanging around with us, you've been hanging around with us, right? You know that we love to put teams into tiers here. And tonight we're doing the same thing. We will not disappoint you if you are a fan of the tiers. And if you are not a fan of the tiers. So,
Cry me a river.
Cry me a river. All right. I try to get up in the
yeah, man. I was up there. I was up there at almost the peak of your range there.
Yeah, that was probably past it. So speaking of peak, the peak is the top tier of the Summit League. Middle of the pack when they say that they're climbing up that mountain still. And the lowest tier will, of course, be the base camp. So we're going to roll through these now. Oh, there it is. Beautiful. Oh, we got the might have the.
Oh, yeah. It looks like tiers are a little off, but that's all right. We can do our thing here.
We got all right. So we got heat wave, partly cloudy, and rainy, which is something that we've been dealing with here in Texas. We probably dealt with all of those.
We got rain today.
In the last 3 days, we had about a 50-day heat wave. And then we got a little bit of that. What was the other one there? We had the old heat wave.
Partly
We had
cloudy,
the partly cloudy. There's
rainy.
been some partly cloudy days. Some partly cloudy days here and there. And then today, yeah, we definitely had the rain out here in Central Texas. Much needed. What do you guys want to do? We want to go ahead and do the Summit League tiers here.
Yeah, we'll do the Summit League. We'll keep the tiers. We'll get the graphics all cleaned up there.
Let's go ahead. So
we'll
peak climbing base camp. Uh-oh. It's hard. Look at it. Look at this. The crack staff behind the scenes getting it done. Peak climbing and base camp back to the original tiers. Let's start with Denver, Mike. Where are they going? Those Pioneers.
Yeah, Denver, 6-12. They're climbing, man. They're climbing here. So not quite, not quite to that peak, but better than the base camp, right? So they're moving on up. I love the combination of Tommy Brune and Ford Tuoko Tanamo. He averaged 11 and 7 last year. You got Utah transfer guard Jackson Brinkley. He's a solid down transfer. Coach Jeff Wilbrun, he's entering year 3, so I think he's ready to make a little bit more noise now that he's got his program going here. So, yeah, I'd like Denver to take a step forward. And obviously when you have someone like Brune, someone that can really control the game, I think they got an opportunity to, get to that 500 mark for sure.
Brinkley, a transfer that did not have his transfer denied by a waiver by the NCAA, which is happening so often. We're seeing it every day, and I've been talking about this for months. It's going to happen more, and we're paying attention to that. But Brinkley is there for the Pioneers. Let's move on to those Kansas City Roos. Eric, where do you got them?
Yeah, I'm going to put the Roos in the climbing category. I guess if we want to be more accurate, we can say they are bounding. We've talked about a couple of key losses for these teams and for this team in Allen and Mitchell. We've also detailed our love for Kopp and the additional opportunity that awaits him in the upcoming season. We've also got forward Alan Makiba, played really well for them last year. He enters his upperclassman season as a junior with a ton of momentum behind him. And we've also got Promise and Precious Idiaru, got a season under their belt, have some upside on both ends. It feels like whenever we get a family affair out there on the court, that always brings a little extra pop coming off of the bench. So a lot of things to like about the Roos, but we have to be honest that with Allen and Mitchell heading out the door, maybe their upside is capped just a little bit.
Yeah, Kopp. If Kopp goes off, there may be a chance if he just goes all world, but it's going to be tough to do that. I totally understand it. I'm not going to buck this trend. I'm going to take the North Dakota Fighting Hawks here, and I am also going to put them into the climbing tier. BJ Omont had a great freshman year, averaging 12 points. They have a veteran front court, and Iowa State Big Dipper Eli King comes down to the Summit and comes in with breakout potential in this conference. So we will put North Carolina right there, smack dab in the middle, and who knows if Omont takes another step forward and then King, plays out with that run that he's looking for, dipping down to the Summit League. Who knows? Those Fighting Hawks could fight their way up to the top tier as well by the end of it. One team that we don't think will have to fight their way to that peak tier, Mike, is North Dakota State. Why do we have those Bison up there at the tippy top?
Yeah, absolutely at the tippy top. So get up on that peak there. They've climbed the mountain. You got the combination of Skunberg and forward to Andrew Morgan. That's one of the top duos in the conference. 9 guys returned from the squad. They won 11 league games last year. Look, like the loss of Grant Nelson, it obviously hurts. But Coach Richmond, he's going into year 10. He's got a solid program. But anytime you lose someone like Nelson, it is going to hurt. But I think they have enough coming back, in Skunberg and Morgan. And then some other guys coming in that is just going to keep them up at that peak range. So definitely like the Bison this year.
Eric, the Omaha Mavericks went 4-14 last year, but are they ready to maybe take a step forward?
I believe that they are. I'm going to put them in the climbing tier. A lot of it has to do with the fact that they've got no major losses here, just like Mike mentioned with North Dakota State. 9 guys back on this roster. You've got guard like Frankie Fiddler and Markel Sutton that were big-time scorers for them averaged 15 and 10 points respectively. We've also got another guard in J.J. White who can hand out a couple of those dimes, averaged 4 assists. So love to see that with regard to those players coming back. And now, Coach Chris Crutchfield is heading into his second year, right? So, really like to see these guys deciding to stick it out, return for coach for another year. And this is really that point where it seems like these new coaches really kind of start to build some momentum around the things that they're trying to instill in their programs. So really like to see the direction that the Mavericks are heading.
One team that I have a feeling that we all know the direction they're heading, and that is a little bit down, I would say, from that peak of last year. We're going to go ahead and put Oral Roberts in the climbing tier. Now, of course, yeah, we know 18-0 last year in the conference, just dominated. But Max Asmus and Connor Vanover, they ain't walking through that door, and neither is Paul Mills, the head coach, okay? But Issac McBride, absolute stud, and Kareem Thompson and DJ Weaver have a lot of experience, and they're going to keep this team relevant along with McBride. So a little bit of a fall from grace for the Eagles. They're not soaring quite so high up in the peaks. However, we're going to drop them down to that climbing tier and see what happens there. All right. And base camp is looking mighty lonely, Mike. mighty lonely. Maybe those Coyotes of South Dakota might end up there.
Oh, yeah. Got to put them in the base camp, man. A lot of teams climbing, though, so you'd like to see that, right? But 7-11 last year, and yikes, you lost your top 3 scorers. They're a younger team, 5 freshmen, 2 sophomores. Paul Brune's the returning guard. I mean, he's got some potential, but it's just really hard to envision this team with any type of ceiling. So, hopefully they'll come out and surprise. But, yeah, I just think that they're hanging out at the base camp this year and looking forward to, getting through the season and hopefully rebuilding for the next year.
That's a tough one, losing your top 3 scorers. And who knows, one of these freshmen or a couple of these freshmen might make something happen, but it's going to be tough for the Coyotes this season. How about those Jackrabbits of South Dakota State, Eric?
Yeah, we're going to move them all the way up to the peak. That is coming off of a 13-5 conference record last year. Clear-cut favorite with Mayo leading the way. This is a team that made the big dance 2 years ago, and we actually liked them to potentially pull an upset in the first round against Providence. Gave them a good run, but ultimately did not. A team that historically has shot the 3-ball pretty well. But, Coach Eric Henderson has really built a juggernaut and an identity around that. We've got guard Matt Mims and forward William Kyle, both really good players behind Mayo. Just a lot of things to like about what the Jackrabbits have done.
Last but not least here, those St. Thomas Tommies, and unfortunately, those Coyotes are going to be down in the base camp all by themselves because we're going to put those Tommies right in the middle, climbing. They did lose freshman Andrew Rohde to Virginia, but besides that, 10 – not 8, not 9, 10 players back, including Parker Bjorklund, who averaged 15 points for those Tommies. And you got to like the continuity here. There's something to be said about that. So 9-9 last year, probably end up somewhere around there again this season. So got our tiers there. How about that? Always nice to see the tiers laid out like this. What do we got? We got South Dakota State and North Dakota State up there at the peak. I feel like it's going to be tough to see any of those other teams take over, but we'll see. It's going to be fun out there in the Summit. Now, if you're having fun with us here on One and Done tonight, make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons. Smash them. Do whatever you got to do. Right there. Just do it. Leave us a comment. Say hey. Say yo. Say what it do. Say you had money on the Eagles to cover that spread, and then they ended up pushing at 6.
Take it. That's a win.
Whatever. Hey, you didn't lose money tonight if that was the case. But if you don't hit that subscribe button, you may lose out on one and done stuff coming up. All these conference previews we have one more, I believe, where we're double dipping, and then into some of the other conferences we're going to focus on and give them their own show. So make sure you're around for that. Turn on those notification bells. But tonight we're going to wrap up this show with the Sun Belt Conference. That Sun Belt, Fun Belt, baby, not too far away from – it's sort of like right in the middle of all three of the guys that you're here in terms of having a home out there in San Marcos. But last year, the Southern Miss basketball team won that 4-team race in the last week and going 14-4 in the conference. But in that conference tournament, Louisiana beat South Alabama 71-66. In the big dance, number 13 seed Louisiana almost pulled that upset over number 4 Tennessee in a game that nobody was surprised at all, played in the 50s. But Tennessee figured out a way to win in a game where, again, 1st to 60 would have won, and to the shock of no one in the Tennessee Volunteer game. But that's Rick Barnes for you. 14th ranked conference in Ken Palm, 5 teams in the top 100. Southern Miss, Marshall, Louisiana, James Madison, and South Alabama. So without further ado, Eric the Blue with the Sun Belt headlines.
Yeah, I mean, right off the top, it looks like we're heading into another buzzsaw of a season, another gauntlet here in the Sun Belt. Last 7 years, this is a conference that averaged a Ken Palm finish a little bit better than 16th in overall ranking. So definitely a very tough conference, a very competitive conference. And we know that we're going to get some high quality basketball and competitive games all the way down the stretch, right? This is one of the most balanced leagues in the country from top to bottom. So a lot of fun basketball here in the Fun Belt. The other thing to note here is that this is another conference that has been impacted by player mobility, right? This is the land of impact transfers and JUCO players. 13 impact transfers to be exact, according to our metrics, which define an impact player as someone that played premium minutes and or put up premium stats in D1 last year, and 20 more JUCO players coming into this conference. So feels a lot like the Southland Conference that we talked about a few shows ago. A breakout player or two from these incoming JUCO players could really be the thing that tips the balance in this league.
Mike, what do you got headline-wise?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to this 3-ball that I talked about. Now, we know the Summit League can really shoot it, and this is a league that, from behind the arc, it was a struggle. 30th in the country in three-point percentage. And I just feel like the 3-ball, like we always say, is going to be a super important factor, and it almost feels like 4 points in this league. So who's going to get it going from range? It's going to be a big separator in this conference. So that's one thing to look at as we progress through the season, and really could tell the tale of who takes down this conference.
2 conferences that we're talking about on this show on the opposite ends of the 3-point spectrum. Which one of these players can get it done? Maybe it's one of the players we're going to talk about next, the rising suns of the Sun Belt Conference.
Oh, that's beautiful. Look at that.
That's crisp. Look at that. Looks like this is how old I'm getting. That reminds me of a little peppermint, like that you would see in like a glass jar on somebody's end table by their couch. Like it actually sounds maybe like a butterscotch.
You got some Werther's on deck over there too.
Like, hey, don't knock Werther's, big dog. Okay, let's not go down that route. All right, let's not do that. But let's get back on track before this gets completely off the rails, and I will not tolerate Werther slander. But the rising suns of the Sun Belt. Let's start with Donovan Gregory, wingman from Appalachian State, 6'5", 190 pounds, scored 12.5 points, grabbed 4 boards, and had 4.3 assists per game, whilst tossing in 1.6 steals in 31.7 minutes. That fantastic stat line only earned him third-team All-Sun Belt honors, and I got a feeling, Mike, that that's going to itch at him a little bit, and he is going to be out to prove a point this year.
Yeah, going into year 5, I mean, he's the only player in program history to record 1,000 points, 500 rebounds, 300 assists. I mean, he's really Mr. Versatile. He also does a really good job defensively. He's played 30-plus minutes in 3 straight seasons. So he's got a ton of experience. He needs to be a little more efficient if he's really going to take off on a national scene or really on a first-team type player, but he's definitely got that ceiling and an all-around game. So really loving what Gregory brings to Appalachian State, and I feel like he's going to be a very impactful player as this conference plays out.
I'm all for player movement, player mobility, as Eric said earlier. It's just awesome to see sometimes when a player like Gregory, who has the skills and probably could leave and find a home somewhere and play a role, he's going to go down as one of the greatest players in the history of this program. And it's because he stayed there, and it's an impressive run he's had there at Appalachian State. Dwon Odom, the guard from Georgia State, 6'2", 280 pounds, averaged 13.1 points, 4.5 rebounds, and almost 4 dimes in 34.3 minutes. Odom is a rising sun here, Eric, and the former Xavier product saw his playing time increase from 21 to 34 minutes. Can he take that next step? I think is the question with that sort of usage, Eric.
Yeah, that very much so is the question. And I think the answer is, you're not seeing a whole lot of guys that are getting recruited to Xavier that don't have the skill set to answer the bell. And he is headed back home for more opportunity last year, right? This is a kid that went to St. Francis High School there in Georgia and looks to be making the most of his opportunity. Last year, it wasn't the most efficient year, but, kind of like we talked about with Gregory, Odom is an absolute stat sheet stuffer, right? He really contributes in a number of different ways. And here in the upcoming season, really looking for his efficiency to take a step in the right direction. And he has got a full plate with some major minutes in the system.
Not to be outdone in terms of somebody that's really looking to take a major step forward here, Obinna Anochili-Killen, the forward from Marshall, OAK, 6'8", 220 pounds there, averaged 8.7 points, 5 boards, and almost 1.5 blocks, and a steal, so almost 2.5 stocks per game in 25 minutes. Mike, this sort of feels like, the curious case of OAK when we saw his production drop. It's a little bit curious, but there might have been some other things going on there, and this could be a year that OAK bounces back.
Yeah, I think it is. Look, like Marshall had a star backcourt. You had Taylor and Kinsey there, but really his regression stemmed from some health issues, a change in position, and I feel like he's in for a major bounce back year. And this guy can destroy a game, absolute game wrecker on the defensive end. You watch the tape, man. This guy plays 32 minutes defensively. He is going to be a game changer. So, I'm looking for OAK here to be a difference maker in this conference like he was 2 years ago.
You down with OAK? All conference, baby. It's coming. Mark it down. Chaunce Jenkins, guard from Old Dominion, 6'4", 175 pounds, averaged 13.5 points, 3.5 boards, and 3 dimes. Also out shooting 37% from 3. Can definitely deal with that in 31.5 minutes. Not really another way to say it except boom with the dynamite with Jenkins in year 3. Eric, after transferring in from Wichita State, really had a nice season.
Yeah, to say the least, right? He never averaged more than 10 minutes per game in those first 2 years, but really settled into a pretty nice role for Old Dominion. He's got long arms. He's one of these reach guys that seems to have basically everything within his wingspan. Very athletic kid overall, and look, ODU has lost a couple of quality players, right, in his backcourt. So he's going to have even more responsibility placed on him. And, if he holds the trend that he's on, he answers the call with this additional usage that's available to him, feels like he could be in the conversation for player of the year when it's all said and done.
He could be, but Austin Crowley is definitely gonna have a word to say about that. The guard from Southern Miss, 6'4", 185 pounds, averaged 16 points, 4 boards, 2.5 dimes, and almost 2 steals while shooting 36% from 3 in 32.5 minutes, Mike. And the former Ole Miss transfer just absolutely went off last year.
He did go off. Great shooter. Really showed that he could impact the game defensively. He's the only first-team All-League player that's returning in this conference. And, yeah, you're right. He's probably the favorite for Conference Player of the Year. He entered the NBA draft this offseason, but ultimately decided to come back and play a 5th year. And, man, good luck to the rest of the league trying to stop this guy. He's a great two-way player.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck.
Good luck. All right. How about that? The rising sons of the Sun Belt. Yes, SON, the sons of the conference, the sons of the sun. And I feel like that we really got, a true son of the conference here with Donovan Gregory. And then, of course, joining Dwon Odom, Obinna Anochili-Killen, Chaunce Jenkins, and Austin Crowley. On our players, we're going to be paying some attention to in this conference. Would not be a conference preview without the classic one and done tiers. And of course, what do we got here? Which tiers? Yeah, heat wave, partly cloudy, base camp rainy. All right, it rains at base camp sometimes. Right, we can do that for sure. Sometimes for sure. Heat wave, partly cloudy and rainy. All right, we're pulling that real quick, but we'll get it back up in a second here. Mike, I'm going to start with you as we go into the tiers for this section with the Arkansas State Red Wolves. 4 and 14 last season were the Red Wolves, but I do not think rainy days are ahead.
No, I don't either, man. I got him in the heat wave, and this might be a little bit of a hot take. I just think it's going to be a big jump this year for these guys. You got 3 players that played premium minutes. Caleb Fields, he's a great floor general. Terrence Ford, he averaged nearly 11 points in his freshman year, so you like that. And much of the ceiling comes from 2 stud transfers. You have Nicole Hardnett from Buffalo, Freddie Hicks from Tarleton State. The cherry on top, and the guy that I'm most excited to see is a former top recruit last year, Darian Ford from Arkansas. He is going to make an immediate impact, and I could actually see him becoming a rising sun in this conference. And I'm really excited about what Arkansas State has to offer. I just think when you look at the roster, it screams a team that is going to be, definitely over 500 and should challenge for, near the top of the conference, that top 4 or 5 for sure.
Big time jump for the Red Wolves. Eric, I'm going to come to you now and ask you about those Appalachian State Mountaineers, 9-9 last season, but will they also take a jump?
They will, at least by our count, right? We already spotlighted Gregory earlier in the show, so obviously when you've got a breakout candidate like that, a spotlight player, that always goes a long way and brings some upside to your team. But they've got 2 other major contributors back. We've got Terrence Harcum. He averaged better than 11 points for them. CJ Huntley was a 9-5 guy for him. Miles Tate, another solid down transfer coming in from Butler. And we've got Coach Kearns heading into year 5. He's got this team playing really solid on the defensive side. I think they were 113th in the country last year. You can really use that as a foundation for your identity. And I like the direction that App State is heading.
Most coaches, I think, are good with being in the top 3rd in the country in defense. It's a good showing there by the Mountaineers. And I wish it would rain. That's where the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers are going to be. They're going to be having rainy days ahead after losing not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but their top 5 scorers. Now, their ceiling might be a little bit higher if Rhode Island transfer Brain Freeman gets his waiver. But as I mentioned earlier, we've seen how tough that is this late in the year. And I don't think the Chanticleers should count on Freeman being a part of their squad this year, at least not on the on-court part of things. 8 new players. It's just hard to convince them being ultra competitive without Freeman, but the NCAA doesn't really have any rhyme or reason with when they make these decisions sometimes. So he may play, and the Chanticleers may end up bumping up a little bit, but I'm not counting on that at all. Georgia Southern Eagles? All right, let's go to Georgia Southern here. Eric, where should we put them in our tiers?
It's going to be raining on these Eagles as well. Much like Coastal, another team that lost its top 5 scorers last season. I think they can be competitive in a lot of their games because they've got some key transfers coming in. You've got someone coming in from Hampton, Deuce Dean. You've also got Eugene Brown transferring down from Ohio State. So, those guys are obviously in prime position to contribute. But, past those two, there's a lot of question marks for this team. And I don't know if they can put all the pieces together as soon as this season.
I'm going to talk about a team sort of just piecing it together. Georgia State, Mike, 13 and I'm sorry. No, they wish they were 3-15 last year in this conference. But I don't think that they're going to be that bad off this year. Are they, Mike?
No, and kind of like Arkansas State, man. Maybe I'm just feeling it tonight. Let's get that heat wave going again, man. This one was kind of a head scratcher last year. They had a really good portal haul. 3 of those quality transfers returned, and they all scored double digits. Brendan Tucker averaged 13 points. Jermaine Mann scored 10 points per game. And then we talked about Odom earlier. You add in Winthrop transfer guard Tenary Lane and Queens transfer forward Jaden Turner. And on paper in this conference, I don't know that there's anybody more talented. So, if they underperform again, it's going to be very disappointing. I just love this roster and think they're going to be very, very strong. So I got those Georgia State Panthers on the heat wave.
Nice. That partly cloudy section, that partly cloudy tier is looking mighty empty. So I'm going to go ahead and slide in those James Madison Dukes right into that middle tier there. 12-6 in the conference last season. Gonna see some sunshine and gonna see some clouds. So partly cloudy this season on the whole. Guard Terrence Edwards was a really good scorer in limited time last season. Boston College transfer forward TJ Bickerstaff. I'm not 100%. Listen, this should go one of two ways. Bickerstaff could have just an absolute breakout monster year and the Dukes just propel up towards that top tier. Or he can just be another guy in the league that averages 10 points and just sort of exists. But this could be the year that Bickerstaff really breaks out and gets out of that shell. And this could easily be a team playing themselves into that heat wave. If it's Bickerstaff or whoever steps up in a big way, those Dukes could definitely do that for sure. Eric, those Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns went 13-5 in the conference last year. Where should we expect them to finish this season?
I'll keep tailing you in these tiers. I'm going to drop them into the partly cloudy category. Like you mentioned, 13-5 last year. The big thing that's keeping them out of that top tier is they've got their star big man Jordan Brown out the door. So that's obviously a big loss for them. Forward Kirby Julian, he's a guy that showed some flashes a couple years ago. Back then he averaged 12 and 4. Like him to be a big factor with that Brown usage available to him. Also a couple of guards, Themis Folks and Kentrell Garnett. They've been kind of building a little momentum, like them to kind of hold their progress. And ultimately, I think the Ragin' Cajuns are going to be a competitive squad. Just don't know if they have enough to really push for the league title.
Yeah, that makes sense. Finish middle of the pack, probably 4th, 5th, 6th, probably 5th or 6th in this league. A team that would probably hope to see brighter days, and maybe could, but not quite sure if they're going to be able to sniff that upper tier, Mike. That's those Louisiana Monroe Warhawks. So where do you have them?
Yeah, 7-11 last year. I'll put them in the rainy little tier there that we got. And, man, I mean, they do have one of the better players in the league, Tyreek LaCour. I thought he should have made the Rising Sun list, but, the 14 teams, like 5 guys, right? It's kind of tough. He averaged 14, 4, and 3, nearly 2 steals a game. But outside of him, I just find it hard to see another guy making a huge impact where they can jump up from this rainy tier to partly cloudy. So for me, it's kind of more of the same, that 6-win, 7-win area. Love to be surprised, but that's where I got him at.
Those Marshall Thundering Herd gonna follow Eric. We're gonna go right back to that partly cloudy. I can't tell you, Mike. I can't drop them down after 13-5 last year. Gonna put them in the partly cloudy. Losing Kinsey and Taylor really, really hurts, but absolutely love OAK, who, yes, if for those of you wondering, is probably will be on the first team All-World name ballot once the season starts here. But also Camden Kerfman, which is just another wild name in itself. But OAK with the upside. Kerfman averaged 11.5 and 3 dimes last season. Maryland Eastern Shore transfer Kevin Voles showed flashes in limited minutes, and only one freshman on the Thundering Herd roster. A lot to like about the upperclassmen here, just enough to pull them through to that partly cloudy tier. Old Dominion Monarchs, Eric. We've got 3-3-3 here. Break the ties.
Break the tie with the Heat Wave, putting them all the way up top. 11-7 last year, so I do like them to take a bit of a step forward. Obviously, we really like Jenkins. We spotlight him as a rising sun earlier, but that's not where the upside of this roster ends, right? We got Tyrone Williams, real nice down transfer coming in from Oregon. We got Dayton transfer RJ Blackney. He's got a ton of experience under his belt. They've also got guard Emo Essien, played a lot for this team. Ultimately, it feels like there's a lot of different ways that the Monarchs can hurt you, and I like them to put it together and take a good step forward this season.
They're riding on a heat wave. Oh, sorry, that's the remix. That's the remix that nobody needed. It's my apologies to Miss Aretha. I'm so sorry that I changed the words to your song there. But Mike, South Alabama Jaguars. The Jaguars. Are we just going to keep going down the list here? Like we got heat wave and then maybe partly cloudy here for the Jags?
Yeah, I'll stick them in that partly cloudy category. A lot of firepower is gone. You lose Moore, Samuel Parham. Transfers, Maxwell Land and Thomas Howell, they're pretty solid coming over from mid-major programs. I find it interesting that, a 3-star guard on the composite, right? John Brune, he's coming in and someone that can make an instant impact. You don't see too many, guys with stars in their names heading into this conference. But, this outlook for me, it kind of mirrors last year. I feel like they're going to be right in the middle of the pack at that 9-9. So, yes, I will have them stuck in partly cloudy until we see a little bit more from some of these newcomers that they're going to be playing.
3 teams left here to slot into our tiers, and I will not, for symmetry's sake, by any stretch of the imagination, put the Southern Miss Golden Eagles down in the rainy tier because they are up at the top in the heat wave. There are only upperclassmen on this squad, and no team with Austin Crowley on it was ever going to be anywhere but the heat wave category. Victor Iwuakor is an impact transfer forward from UNLV. Another waiver we're waiting on here, and Andre Curbelo, and that's a player that we paid a lot of attention to last year on from a DFS perspective when he was at St. John's. And Coach Jay Ladner, they're rocking, Southern Miss and trending in the right direction. Year 5 for Coach Ladner. And, of course, with a name like Jay, it's hard to go wrong. So those Golden Eagles will be in that heat wave All right. We talked about those Texas State, that San Marcos school a little bit ago being right in between your three favorite hoop heads here on the screen today. However, Eric, probably tough days ahead for those Bobcats.
Yeah, watching the radar, I think it might actually be raining in San Marcos as we speak, and that is very much so where the Bobcats will land. 6-12 last season, tough year, not what they're looking for, and to top it all off, they turn around and lose arguably their best playmaker. So, 7 new players on this roster all told, and this is a pivotal year for Coach Terrence Johnson, right? He joined this squad back in 2020. And, I'm not sure if he's got the horses to kind of turn this thing around, but got to imagine that that seat's getting a little hot. So better days ahead for the Bobcats. I just don't know if those better days start this year.
Toasty. See, I would just say the seat is a little toasty. It's not like super. It's toasty. Okay, we'll just say that. Troy Trojans, last but not least. Mike, we'll wrap it up here with you. Where do those Trojans go?
Well, we got a lot of even distribution. I'm going to go ahead and put these Trojans, who were 11-7 last year, partly cloudy. I just think there's a lot of unknowns on this roster. You got 4 JUCO guys, 4 true freshmen, and 1 redshirt freshman. Guard Christian Eugene and Amir Muhammad. They both average double figures, so we know that their known quantities are going to keep this team competitive. I got to see it, like we talked about some of these conferences. We got to see these newcomers and how they're going to play and affect these teams. So for right now, I'm going to stick them in the partly cloudy category, and we'll see if they have any more upside and a little juice to squeeze out of that. So, yeah, we'll round it out right there.
Wheeze the juice. No wheezing the juice. All right. Anybody, you guys, that's an Encino Man reference. If you're down with Encino Man, you know about wheezing the juice, which they're going to try to do, the Trojans are going to try to do out of those 2 guards. Wrapping up the tier section, I should say, for the Sun Belt in that heat wave: Appalachian State, Arkansas State, Georgia State, Old Dominion, and Southern Miss vying for that title in our minds. James Madison, here we go. Hold on, let me get back up here real quick. We got James Madison, Louisiana, Marshall, South Alabama, and Troy. And, of course, down at the bottom, Coastal Carolina, Georgia Southern, Louisiana Monroe, and Eat 'em Up Cats, Texas State Bobcats. And that's a little Shirochi, guys. A little Summit League, a little Sun Belt, Fun Belt action tonight. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us. We know that you watched that football game tonight, and then you were looking for something to do, and you ended up on One and Done with 2 of the best in the business. My guy, Eric, let's go to you first. Anything that we need to know before we wrap this one up?
Man, this was a fun one, right? I think these are going to be 2 competitive leagues when it's all said and done, kind of competitive in different ways, right? I think, there's potentially for, there's potential for a team to come out of the summit that can really make some noise, if they get seeded correctly. And obviously the Sun Belt feels like it's going to come down to the wire. So definitely have a better handle on what these conferences have to offer, and I cannot wait for the season to tip off.
You can find old Eric the Blue in those Twitter streets at Fantasy Nav. Of course, he is the Baron of Bread of Green Screens Media and El Capitan himself, the captain of the Green Screen ship. Mike Holland. Mike, put a bow on it.
Yeah, bow on it, man. 3-point shooting. The Summit League, obviously, you need 3-point shooting in that league to be competitive. So, we only had 2 teams at that top tier, 1 team at the bottom tier, and a bunch in the middle. So 9 teams there. It's going to be a grind. The Sun Belt, it is the Fun Belt, 14 teams, and I feel like this one's going to have a little more volatility to it. There, could be some surprises. I love the names in the Sun Belt. Feels like a lot of all-name players in that league. And the 3 ball is going to be just as critical in this one for the fact that they don't make very many threes. So the team that's able to stretch the floor is just going to make their offense a lot easier because there are a lot of good defensive teams in this league.
Definitely going to make it down to San Marcos to watch some of these teams come in and play. And if I were you, I would hit those like and subscribe buttons and turn on your notification bells so you know every time we're going live, so you know when we go to these games and we talk to you about them, so you can follow those Twitter pages at Get Green Screens and at One and Done CDB. There they are across the screen. I am the conductor of the aforementioned Green Screens train, Jay Heinrich, at Dr. William Cannon on Elon's Hellhole. Take care of yourself first, always. Have a nice day. Let's get this bread, baby.
Thanks for stopping by the office. Get your fantasy prescription by subscribing to the channel and checking out drrodo.com. And until the next visit, be well and take care.